Hello, welcome back. So, the idea for this video was inspired by an Instagram post I saw about authors going from writing clean books to spicy books. So I saw that, and then I also did a little bit of research into one of the authors talked about. And because I don't have that much to say on this topic, I'm also going to be talking about some tips I have for researching books. So, I guess that'll be all. Let's get into it. So yeah, the post in question was from a popular No Spice Bookstagram, and she was saying I think it was a reel. She was talking about how she felt betrayed by certain authors that were once writing clean books, but then now writing spicy books, and sometimes the case with series where they start clean, but then the later books would be spicy. And some of this series referenced in the post and also talked about in the comments were the Assistant to the Villain series by Hannah Nicole Mayer, the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams, and also Sarah Adams in general, and some other series mentioned in the comments. Well, the only one I remember that was mentioned in the comments was the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. So yeah, there's that. Those were the series that were mentioned. So yeah, there was all where this series started off fun, but then there was content in the later books. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I did think it was a little dramatic to say that they felt betrayed by some of these authors, but at the same time, like I get it because people value consistency, and I think one of the things I heard a while ago is that the main reason for DNFs is because something comes up that they didn't expect. Having a hard time trying to transition into the thoughts I want to say. I think like I understand the betrayed, and I think some people were saying in the comments, well, these authors should say from the start if they ever see themselves writing spicy scenes or whatever, and I don't I don't know if that's necessary, but I guess the thing that I would find a problem with is that, and what is a big problem is in this is that, well, again, I don't know how common this is, but the problem where things get bad is when someone pretends to be something that they're not. People pretend to be something that they're not, and then but then they pretend to be something that they're not, and they use that to market themselves and grow a following, and then they abandon a fan base that they never cared about when they get big enough. Like that's obviously a very bad thing to do. But with the series and authors mention it, I don't know if that was ever the intent of everything of any of these authors, so I don't want to put that on them. And we'll talk about Sarah Adams in a sec, but with the other things, like with Throne of Glass with Sarah J. with Throne of Glass, like I really don't think Sarah J. Maas ever set out to be a clean or closed door author. Like I don't buy that. And with the Assistant to the Villain series by Hannah Nicole Mayer, I mean, like for all I know, the first two books in that series happened to be No Spice, and then those books were recommended on all these No Spice fantasy recs or whatever, and maybe the author didn't ask for that, but didn't say anything because at least her book was getting promoted, or maybe she didn't even know about that, and so then maybe people are disappointed when there was all of a sudden spice in the third books, but maybe they like I don't know if that was what the author intended. I don't so again I don't want to put that on these people. So yeah, I mean I guess like honesty is valued, and I guess yeah, I don't know where to go from there. So reading these comments and talking reading these comments talking about Sarah Adams, I remember thinking while I was scrolling the comments, didn't Sarah Adams publicly say that she wasn't going to write clean books anymore? And so I decided to look into that for a bit because I remember hearing about that, but I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Yeah, I googled it and I found this Facebook post about it. So yeah, I'm gonna read this out to you. So she starts off by saying that she's gotten a lot of questions since she announced that her new book was going to be Open Door, and at that time that book was the Rule Book or Rule Book. And then she says, and she wasn't going to publicly announce this, but she decided she was going to say something, and this is what she says. I am a huge advocate and always will be for closed door books. I am a huge advocate and always will be for open door books. I can be both. As a writer, I write from my heart, not to market. I write what I need at that time in my life and hope it finds others in similar seasons who need the same thing. This is why all types of books are necessary and important. I am so happy that my closed door books could find the people who needed them. There are many readers who are healing from various traumas who need romance and flirty banter without explicit content. Those who are in seasons where intimacy is difficult for them and they need and they need, I think it's supposed to say an escape, but it says and instead, without having to compare themselves against the passions of others. For these reasons and more, I will also be a huge advocate and champion for closed door books. It is important. And now I'm moving into a season of my life where I also think showing intimacy between the couple is important and needed, to show there's no shame in it, but beauty. And contrary to what many people seem to think lately, you can exist in both spaces. I will not apologize for having open door intimacy in my books going forward, and I will not commit to being wholly an open or closed door author. I will, however, always treat my readers with kindness and respect by giving you advance notice as to what content you will find in my books, and provide you with a guide on which chapters to skip if you would like my stories to remain closed door for you. And then she says thank you at the end, so that is the post. So I have a few things that I'd like to respond to in that whole little spiel she gave. So first, this idea that you can be an advocate for both closed door and open door books. I mean, I guess you can, but it depends how you go about it. Like, if you're advocating for closed door books in the sense that, hey, people who don't want to read explicit content should have the option to not read that, then yeah, I'd say you can. If it's about options for you, then you can advocate for both. But if you were advocating for closed door books in the sense of spice is bad, then if you were to turn around and say, oh, I can also advocate for open door books, people will be like, well, no, because you were just saying this was bad. So, yeah, I didn't look into what Sarah Adams has said, so I don't know which part she lands on. So yeah, there's that. Another thing I wanted to respond to is she seems to think that the only reason she mentions for people wanting to read closed door books was because of like traumas or they struggle with intimacy if they're married, but like that's not the case for all of us. Some of us who are unmarried, some of us just want to stay pure and we don't want to be thinking about that kind of stuff, okay? And some people who are married who don't want to read that stuff, maybe they're not struggling, but they don't want to read about other people's sex lives because that's, private information, even if they're not real people. So, yeah, there's that. So, yeah, that post was interesting. And then someone also commented under that original post, like the post that I was referring to at the beginning. Someone commented that Sarah Adams does in fact put content warnings in her books that are open door. So I decided to look some books up on Amazon to verify this. So I looked up at the beginning of Beg, Borrow, or Steal and In Your Dreams, and there was indeed content reviews or warnings about which chapters would be spicy in an introduction. So props to her for that. It seems she did keep her word in that sense, but I don't know if she's completely off the hook because I heard about a scene in Beg, Borrow, or Steal that wasn't spice, but it kind of was. I'll let Oshina explain that for you.
It was really awkward because there was a scene that the characters were talking about what they would do to each other, but they weren't actually doing it. They were just talking about it, but it was so strange. And I felt like it was Sarah Adams like trying to put more spice in her books without saying that there's actual spice, because they were literally just talking, but they were saying, then I would do this, then I would do this. And I was like, no.
So I don't know what's up with that, and none of this is meant to be a Sarah Adams deep dive in any way. I just looked up a few things, so yeah, I don't know, and maybe if I ever get around to doing that, maybe I will do a bigger deep dive, but for now, this is what I've got, so there's that. Alright, so now let's talk about some of my tips for researching books to find out if they're clean or not. So, of course, I think most people know that you can just search clean romance books and get suggestions. But I'm talking about if there's a specific book you're interested in and you want to know if it's clean or not, this is what I do to research. So, if a book is relatively mainstream, or like you can find it in stores, or relatively mainstream, then you pretty much can just search title of the book, spice rating, and then hopefully something should come up. And I think for all the book talk books, there definitely should be something that comes up. And then one website that I've talked about before that is really helpful, and this is called romance.io. And they have these um, spice ratings things. All right, and so sorry, I had to pull up the spice rating guide for this website. So yeah, it'll be a 1 out of 5 flames. So with 1 flame, that means glimpses and kisses, which is pretty much just means it's a just kisses romance. 2 flames means behind closed doors, so that means this book is either a closed door or with like it's like a scene that's not really that described, or like a fade to black scene. That would be 2. Then 3 is open door, so that would be so we get spice, but they were saying like they use more euphemisms. And then 4 is explicit open door, so this seems like more like explicit, like clear language. Then the 5 is explicit and plentiful, so yeah, entirely smut. Well, not entirely, but like lots of scenes. And then I was confused about this at first. If there's no flames ratings, that just simply means that there isn't a rating for this book yet. So you still have to do some research on that. This has been helpful, but I will note that sometimes these ratings aren't always the most accurate. So it also, I think it'd be helpful to, after you've looked for the book on here, that you'd also do some supplementary research on Goodreads. Speaking of Goodreads research, this is how I do the majority of my research, because a lot of the books I want to read are more obscure. So yeah, the most likely place where I'm going to find answers about content would be on Goodreads. So one feature that I didn't at first know about when I started doing Goodreads research, and when I found out about it, it was a game changer, is there is actually a search bar on Goodreads where you can type a word into that bar, and then all reviews with that word in it will come up. So that has definitely been very helpful in doing research. So I'm gonna talk about the terms I use to try to find content. So if it's a newer book that you're wondering about, so a book that was published in like the 2020s era, then you can search for more current terms. So like spice or spicy or closed door, like terms like that. So yeah, you can search those terms, and then of course when the reviews comes out, you still have to read the whole reviews to find out if it's to get the answer you're looking for. And then for older books, so I mean, of course, 2010s books isn't that old, but people weren't as I think people weren't using terms like spice back then. So for those books, I would just search like sex, and then things will come up as a result of that, and then you have to read the reviews. And one more tip I can find, because sometimes the books, there's not enough reviews, and sometimes the reviews that are there, they don't mention this kind of content. So if a book you're interested in comes up, and if like you've searched, this has happened where you search one of those terms that I suggested and no reviews come up, or you've read the reviews and you can't find any things, it's best to err on the side of caution and not read that book, or like wait until more information comes out of that book. So yeah, I've kind of, there's been times where I made exceptions for that because I want to be a resource. But yeah, most of the time, if I can't find the information, I just don't add it to my TBR. So yeah. So that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Uh, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting video, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. I hope you find my tips helpful. So that is all. Goodbye.